it hasn't flipped. Hello, 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 and welcome to PitchZone. How do you make a really good pitch even better? That is one of the goals here at PitchZone. We are helping presenters, predominantly startup founders, to take short pitches and improve them based on the feedback of 4 coaches in a 45-minute session. And today we have a presenter coming back. Actually, she was here last week, Henrietta Szutorisz. Henrietta, it's so great to see you again. How are you today?
Hello, everyone. Very good. How are you, Claudia?
All right. I'm really looking forward to see your pitch today because last week we all were amazed how solid your pitch already was. We had a little bit of feedback for you, and this week you are going to present it without slides. So that's very cool. All right. And the audience is the same, right? It's investors, early stage investors.
Yeah,
All right.
correct.
And while we are doing the greetings here, let me also very quickly bring up Fancy and Fleek, a previous presenter here on the PitchZone, and also Rick Pollack. He was one of the coaches last week, and he's standing by now on YouTube, and I'm sure Rick will have some valuable feedback for us as well. And let's bring in the coaches for this week. And it's a different set of coaches, well, with one exception, and that's, of course, Nathan Gold. He is a firm fixture at PitchZone here, a co-creator of the entire program. So, Nathan, always a pleasure to have you here. How is your week so far?
It's going very well. Today's Thursday, and I'm looking forward to Friday, but I'm more looking forward to Henrietta's new pitch today. Thank you for coming back.
Yeah. She actually spontaneously just jumped on it because that slot just freed up. So, Nathan, I'm going to put you into that coaches row over here and bring in Scotty Spursum. Scotty, welcome back to PitchZone. How are you today?
I am well.
Okay.
Looking forward to hearing Henrietta.
All right. So, Henrietta, you haven't met Scotty yet. Scotty is a language expert. She is a language coach, and I think she will be able to help you with a couple of language-related issues, pronunciation, and so on. So that is absolutely great. Scotty, I'm going to put you over here as well and bring in Michael Marchak. Michael, you haven't graced us with your presence in quite a while. How are you today?
I am very well, and unlike Scotty, I don't know how to use language very well, but I am super excited to hear Henrietta's pitch since I wasn't here last week to be able to hear that. So looking very much forward to it, Henrietta.
Indeed. And Henrietta and anybody watching us here online, Michael is a C-level executive, but he's also an angel investor. So he's really the perfect audience for Henrietta and your pitch today. So with that, let's just dive in so we have as much time as possible for feedback. Henrietta, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. I'm going to switch over to your solo view, and when you start talking, I'll bring up a timer above you. Take your time, though. I will not show it until you start speaking. Take a deep breath, and whenever you're ready, the floor is yours, Henrietta.
Hi, I'm Henrietta Szutorisz, PhD biomedical scientist with over 20 years of research experience and the creator of successful businesses, including mental health consulting. I wonder if you have met someone with an addiction. If not yet, now you know one, because I used to have a serious drinking problem. It affected every area of my life and even inspired me to do over a decade of brain research. Eventually, the right personalized treatment led me to full recovery. I founded Objective Recovery to make this much easier. It is estimated that at least 1 out of 10 people experience an addiction over their lifetime. It comes with tremendous physical and mental health consequences. So why is recovery so hard? It is because addiction and even habit change is largely driven by forces in the brain that we are not aware of. When we try to go against the desire of using a drug of choice, it is often like navigating a ship around an iceberg where parts of our brains work against us. There are many treatments available, but they are often hard to access because they are not matched to the individual. Objective Recovery will solve the choice problem with a digital platform that predicts the most suitable recovery method for people based on individual biology and personality. An engaging assessment will tap into those unconscious processes and override the barriers of human perception, since an objective AI creates the treatment plan. The global substance abuse treatment market has recently been valued at over $10 billion and is expected to double in 10 years of time. Our two main customer segments are people with unresolved substance use disorders and treatment providers such as doctors, therapists, rehab facilities, hospitals that try to help but are often limited by their own preferences. We designed an affordable subscription scheme for these customers and are looking for pre-seed investors to develop the platform further and access a broad variety of customers. Recently, a person who tried the first version of our product described, quote, "I have been judged in recovery groups, even by a doctor, but they couldn't help me. I learn new things about myself from Objective Recovery, and I'm exploring methods I have not even heard of before." We believe that this approach has tremendous potential for the future. If successful for addictions, similar strategies could be designed for other conditions, potentially revolutionizing the mental health industry. Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. Congratulations are really, really in order here. Henrietta, you took all of the feedback from last week, and I think I saw it incorporated every single piece. The one that is probably the most difficult one is your pace and your pauses, and you definitely had a great, great improvement there. So I want to bring up Scotty first because she is our language expert here. And Scotty, what is your impression of this pitch?
Henrietta, I thought it was really, really great. And I remember, I think I met you once a long time ago when you were up next or something, a few weeks ago. And I had mentioned pace because speed can be the enemy. And you've settled into a really good pace. I think the first 40 seconds, though, was still a little bit fast. And I'm an old-fashioned note taker. And you can confirm this for me, right? Handwriting things helps get them into your brain. And so I couldn't write down all of your background, which I was trying to do when I was writing it down in the beginning. And so, but after that 40-second mark you got into a much more even pace. And one of the things about English is that it's a stress-timed language, and we use stress within words, right? The majorly stressed word. And then also we have these scoops of information in sentences. And sometimes you're still going up when you need to come down for the pause.
Okay.
And so just think about that. And when you rewatch this and watch other things, and it allows you to create these really crisp words, right? Hello, my name is Scotty Spursum.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a grabbing. I don't know if I got my hand on the right side. Grabbing the word, and then the tone comes down a little bit. No, but I thought it was terrific. And then also congratulations on your recovery and coming up with this this idea. What sparked it? What was I mean, I know you went through your own journey, but was there some crystallizing moment that when you said to yourself, I can do this?
Yes, so it was a long process. So what sparked it primarily was my own experience with taking even more than 10 years trying different things for my recovery, and nothing worked. And trying advice from other people. And so just going through this grind so for such a long time. And in the end, I got into really thinking hard and really serious soul searching at what's really wrong with me, what drives this for me. And that's how I came up with my own personalized plan. I went to a doctor and asked for a prescription for a medication that really helped me. And then, together with my background in addiction research, I decided that this was so difficult even for someone like me who has this knowledge about neuroscience of addiction. But so let's try to do something to make it easier for others. So that was the process.
Great. And that, what you just said, that pace was even slower and more
Okay.
fluid, I thought. So congrats,
Okay.
that's great.
Thank you very much. I think that what you mentioned about the tone, like going up and down, that's definitely coming from my first language. I recognize that now that you mention, I recognize. So I will pay attention to that. Thank you.
Yeah. I like people to think about like floating over a little wave. You know, if everybody go in the ocean or a lake and there's just this sort of up and down motion, and I'm even doing it with my body to help
Yeah.
remind people. Yeah, it's another
Yeah.
easy way to incorporate it, in my opinion. So
Thank you.
great.
Well, I thought it was interesting that since I haven't seen your slides, I like to be able to hear the story behind things. That's always to me is important. A couple things about presentation style. While I appreciate you looking at the camera and smiling, it was wonderful. This is how it looked like to me. Hi, I had this addiction and it was horrible and it was a terrible, terrible thing. And I was for 10 years, I had a big addiction and it was draining my life. It didn't match. So the emotions about how it devastated your life and how it's terrible, it didn't come across in your facial features. It came across in the words, but not in the way. So it's difficult from we can have any kind of conversation with somebody to be more empathetic and believe them when there's no emotion in the face, or the face and the emotions don't match the words you're using. So I would really suggest that when you watch it back, understand what I was talking about there, but maybe approach it in a different way and how you say those words. And to the pacing, again, when you have an addiction and it crushes you for 10 years, okay, that's a very different way of saying, I had addiction to crush me for 10 years. So again, that's from a presentation perspective, maybe look at that. From a content perspective, I would ask, you mentioned that you've tried this, I heard, on one person. So there's a couple things as an angel investor is, how many doctors have reviewed this? Is it, can it be accredited? Does it have to be accredited to have a doctor leverage this kind of platform before they would choose to use it with a patient of theirs? How does insurance cover this? What insurance requirements are there to be able to do that with an insurance company to be able to submit it here in the United States? Is this in only English, or do you have it in multiple languages? Are you planning multiple languages? I don't know if that is a plan on the horizon. What's the business model? I didn't understand the business model other than the subscription model there beyond it. Is it a subscription model that the individual pays for? Is it a subscription model that the insurance company has to sign up for? Or is there a one-time fee for that? So understanding that sort of somehow the business, and maybe with slides, maybe you showed that last week and I didn't catch those. But okay, that would be something for me, I'd want to understand as you went through it. One person you mentioned, how many people have gone through this in a trial? Has a doctor reviewed it?
Yeah. Okay, so to answer that, so I'm working with one of the advisors for this startup is a clinical scientist, and we together work with quite a few different doctors. And so far, there have been 2 doctors working on this, but it's really at the moment it's not ready to be used really as in clinical practice. So we are working with those 2 doctors that really like it, and they actually we are working with some of their patients, and a clinical study population of people with substance use disorders. And the people who have tried it so far, it's around 20 people, a bit more than 20 people. So not too many at the moment.
So the other thing is, because you're working and you're having your advisors and doctors who are reviewing this, is it possible to have a study run that you fund that become the basis on which you can produce your materials, and say, based on a clinical study of X number of participants, statistically sound, of course, these were the results and the outcomes that you can base that on, because that's going to help someone like me who looking at this, like, okay, it actually does work, and you did your science behind it, and then having physicians who are going to either put their name to it or put patients through it will also tell me that this is something that it's not just a good idea, but you actually have the professionals who would be introducing their clientele into this platform, giving you feedback and endorsements on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely a major goal, to run a proper clinical study. So it's I mentioned with those advisors and the doctors, we have started it, and I'm also interested in. I'm also actually applying for grants to cover the costs of the clinical study. So that will definitely be. So there is no way around that. That has to be done. So that will also take a while. And the goal is to use that. So my idea is to use the grant is probably an easier route for the clinical study to cover those costs. And the idea is that out of that clinical study, the data that we have, then it will make this much stronger, and then we can go out and talk to investors with more credibility.
So that makes sense, and I appreciate that. So understanding that the funding would be used for these clinical studies in addition to other things would be something that I would want to know as I'm putting my money up for this, because we've seen many drug companies who've done clinical studies where things didn't work out so well. So understanding that my money is at risk in a different kind of way than perhaps just building a platform that's already been proven.
Okay, I can definitely mention the clinical study. Would you also want to hear more about the business model, like how the subscription work in this kind of pitch?
Absolutely. And then Rick made a really good comment that's on the screen right now, talking about the subscription model as you start looking at subscription models for this type of thing. You may want to look at it in a different way than in a monthly subscription like that, for a couple different reasons. One, insurance models, you need to bring those into play, because it's likely you're going to have insurance companies who will be paying for some of these patients. And the other things is that when you start managing any kind of subscription, you run risks of how long they're going to be a part of that subscription, if it is a month-to-month type of thing or whatever. So there are some subscriptions where it makes sense in a model that you do that. This one, you may want to reconsider how you approach it.
Okay, thank you. So
Henrietta, go ahead.
Yeah. What we created for the subscription, just very briefly, so we have a combination of monthly and annual, so people can choose, and there is also a discount for the first month. So that's how we came up with it.
Yeah, but as Michael was saying, when you get in front of an investor, the first thing they're going to ask you about is churn. And when you have a subscription model, especially a monthly based one, it gets pretty tough. I mean, it's a difficult way to do business for some types of things, especially like Rick said in his comment, for what you're doing, it doesn't feel right. But I digress. Okay, so back to what Michael said earlier, in terms of your voice and face not necessarily matching what you were saying. When you go back and watch the video, you'll see exactly what he was talking about. And when you bring in the empathy in the way you speak and the way you look and the way you sound and everything about you, then it becomes a much more engaging presentation, because then you're coming across as more genuine to us and more real and vulnerable. I very much liked how you changed up the order of the opening, and you put your part at the end of that, because by then I had respect for you if I never heard you before because of what you said. What I would like to recommend here is, though, At the very end of this pitch, I would love for you to leave a couple of seconds at the end just to remind the audience that you are the right person for this, meaning go back to your neuroscientist cred statement and bring it just back. And thank you very much. And as a blah, 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 I'm truly hoping I can bring this to the world to help more and more people, blah, 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 blah. It feels like just reminding us again at the end would be very helpful. Okay? And I've got a few other
thank
things.
you.
I'll pass it back. You're welcome.
Thank you. I actually have that in the last slide in my pitch deck currently is exactly that, what you mentioned, to bring it back to my credentials.
Perfect.
I will do it also in the speech.
Okay.
Nice. Now, I wanna add on to something that Michael said, because this is also one of the areas I think there could be the most improvement at this point in your pitch, and that was related to the congruence, right? To you smiling when you're talking about something really negative, and there's this incongruence there, right? And you may have heard of this study, that says something about 55% is body language, 38% is the sound, and only 7% are the words, right? And this is probably the most misunderstood or misinterpreted study in the communications business, right? Because what Mehrabian actually was studying was congruence, right? So it's not that the words only are 7%. And you can easily find that out when you're listening to a language, somebody speaking a language that you do not understand. You are not understanding 93%, right? So it's definitely misunderstood. What he did is he was researching how we respond to incongruence, meaning if somebody says yes, or they say no, which one do we believe? Unconsciously, right? And it is the body language. It is so this, I think, is a very, very important point. Now, that only leads me to the point that I want to make, and that is, I think your story is worth telling. Not just mentioning the facts that you were addicted to alcohol and you overcame it, but there is a story behind it. And today you cannot learn anything about presenting, pitching, and so on without hearing the words storytelling. And that unfortunately leads to a situation where often founders are adding stories just for the sake of story, right? But there is actually a real purpose behind telling stories. And that purpose is to signal the message, to send the message that transformation is possible. And I have the prescription for it. I have the means to guide you, to help you through that transformation, right? And so in your story, there is exactly that, right? You can document with your story that, yes, transformation is indeed possible. This is how I did it. And this is why objective recovery was born out of that.
I want to go on something else that you said, Claudio, that made me think. Facial expressions transcend the language we speak. So it's no matter what your first language is, when someone's crying, they're not happy. When someone's really pondering, no matter what the words they say are, you're looking at their face, you're studying the expressions they have, and that provides a wealth of information, regardless of the words that you use and what language it's in. So even if this English is not your first language, it doesn't matter. People see your face, they understand you, and they can understand how you're facing in the way that you use your facial expressions to be able to convey that information without words. So that's one part of it. The second part that I want to kind of tag on what Claudio mentioned was the story that you have about overcoming is a good story to leverage that. It would be also good to tie it back into what you're doing. I overcame my addiction to alcohol, and it took me years to do, and I had a real tough time doing it. if I had the platform that I'm developing right now, that journey would have been 7 months long, and I would have been, in a much better place, whatever it was to be. Identifying that transition from it took me a long time to if I had this is what I would have expected to do, and understanding that from an investor perspective, I kind of want to know how long this is going to be. Do I have a patient that's going to come in, a customer, if you will, of this platform, that will be a customer of mine for 6 minutes, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years? I don't know. And so understanding what that duration of is going to help me understand, okay, the lifetime revenue potential for one of the members of this platform is X. And we expect, kind of like the death industry, at the end of it, you're not going to have a customer anymore, right? You expect that. The whole goal of that is that my customers are no longer going to come back to me. They may refer other customers to me, but they're never going to come back to me because I will have changed their mindset in a way that they won't ever need to. So understanding that this is a goal that you have. So I, as an investor, need to know what's that runway? How long
Yeah.
will that revenue stream last for that one customer of ours?
Yeah.
And when they do refer, what could that mean for other customers coming in? So
Yeah.
those are the kind of things you may want to include in. So to tag that to your story and help me understand sort of where this kind of runs to.
Yeah, thank you. So it's actually it will be a big part of that clinical study I mentioned to figure out what is the right timing. So, what is the time frame of a recovery and what is realistic. So how we should measure that. So that's also,
Do
once
you
we have
have
that
any?
study done, the first
Do
phase,
you have
then it
any
will be easier.
funding from government sources or stuff? Are there
So
potential government sources for funding that you could tap into?
yeah, so grants, that's what, so I'm going to apply for grants. I actually submitted a grant application already, a federal grant application. So that's exactly the comment on that. So that's actually
Okay.
very interesting what you guys are telling me about the body language, because I trained myself to smile more than I would do normally, because I was looking at other people pitching and I like kind of, cheerful people. And it's a bit hard because it's been a good while, like, my recovery, it wasn't yesterday. So I'm not in those emotional states anymore. But it's funny because I exactly went from, the more like realistic body language to more like cheerful and what I thought would be likable. But I think what you are saying makes sense. And
So you're
it's more
you're in
realistic.
America. You've seen enough of the ads on television where they have the happy, smiley customers with the voice under, where they're telling you about all the terrible side effects, right? So again,
Yeah.
that's one of those incongruence things that they try to
Right.
hide from you. Yes, most of you may die from this, but look at the smiling people who are walking through a park together, right? So these are the issues
Yeah.
you have to overcome. So when you're telling a story like this, you do have to rechannel that old energy you have into, I've never been through your story. I have no idea what you've been through, right?
Okay.
And even if it is distant past for you, you need to help me understand, to believe what you've been on. It was traumatic. You did recover from it. And now you really took that initiative to move to the next step. By bringing all those things together, I will feel much more connected with you, because that's what we're investing in, is your idea. And that will help me feel more comfortable understanding that, yeah, we did go through something. She actually understands the people who are going through right now and knows how to talk to or work with those kind of clientele.
Okay. Thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah, really, all great points. And I was going to add, so my father was an alcoholic and he stopped drinking before I was born, so I never saw the worst of it. But I was thinking, as you do your introduction, and I'd kind of like to hear your credentials again, because as I said, I couldn't quite catch it. I thought that the speed was a little fast. But I'm wondering if, as you introduce your credentials and then say, and I don't know if I have the right verbiage, but, and I'm a recovering alcoholic, or I think my father always said he was, I can't remember the phraseology. He went through the 12-step program, I think.
Yeah.
But so
Yeah. Yeah.
when you can use some phraseology that will resonate with people who have gone through this or who are working on these, I think that would be another great connection for you. And
Okay.
then
Okay.
to get into what you told us about your story, and it took me 10 years, even with my background, it took me 10 years to navigate, right, to figure out what was going to be the best recovery plan for myself, and it worked. So, and then you can get back to the smiling because you're in great shape. I'm right. I mean, it's like you're in a really good place. So, would you mind just doing
Yeah,
your
yeah.
with your like start again, just the first bit about your
Yeah.
background?
Yeah, so I said that I'm Henrietta Szutorisz, PhD biomedical scientist with over 20 years of research experience and the creator of successful businesses, including mental health consulting. That was it.
Mental health consulting.
Mental health consulting. Yeah, that's what I'm doing in addition to this startup.
So,
Yeah.
so see there, right? So again, I'm not familiar with other companies that you started. So mental health discovery. There's got to almost be a little bit of a pause. And I was working with a client yesterday,
Okay.
and he came up with this great um, analogy for it. He said, "I need to put commas and periods in my oral production."
Yeah.
So if you think about that, also we come down a little bit. I'm a mental health expert. I've developed these products. I've started objective recovery. We go down just a tiny bit subtly at the end of a sentence, more so than in any other part of the sentence. The other scoops come down subtly rather than going up, because going up implies a question, like I'm
Okay.
ready, right? It's
Yeah.
sort of a start.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd be
Yeah.
happy to
Thank
talk to
you.
you separately about that.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's what
And
can help I can see because when I for example wrote a script for this a while ago, and I tend to write very long sentences. So I think it would help if I just wrote shorter sentences because when I read that, I memorize kind of if there is an end, full stop that prompts me to go down to,
But
take
in
my
but in
voice
spoken
down.
right, but in spoken language, when there aren't commas, depending on what you as the speaker mean, it's determined by how you say it.
Yeah.
So we could take a really simple sentence. Scotty has gray hair. Scotty has gray hair. Scotty has gray hair. So you can say something many different ways depending on what you mean. When it's written, the reader just has to try to absorb it. When you're speaking, you have the opportunity to emote, right? To pass that on to your audience, and the audience is listening for those the words that you spend more time or length and loudness on to know what's most important to you, and also where you're going with the verbiage. So
Yeah.
great,
Thank you.
great, great.
Henrietta, I have one more bit of feedback for your total timing here. It took you 1 minute and 25 seconds of your 3-minute pitch to get to objective recovery solves this problem. So that's too long, in my opinion, for a 3-minute pitch to spend that much time on the problem, even though some of that time was spent on your credibility. So I don't want to discount that at all. That's a very important piece. But perhaps over time, as you begin to get more proof points, like Michael was talking about earlier, with more people, more studies, and all of that kind of stuff, then you can replace some of that problem time
Right.
with more proof that it's working
Yeah.
or can work
Yeah.
or is interesting and desirable by the medical professionals that deal with addiction and things like that. So think about that as you begin to develop more success points or proof points, I like to call them. Chuck the problem, put more of that in, and get to your product sooner. And
Yeah.
that would be probably add so much depth to what you're doing here because it builds up the credibility, not just for you, but for what you're doing. Okay?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I think I had a very long, like a few sentences about the unconscious processes, that part that I can definitely cut. I just liked the original version, but I can definitely use that even probably completely because it's not too important.
Well, Henrietta,
Thank you.
I think even though I haven't seen your first pitch, I'm going to go back and watch it. Seeing your second pitch, I would love to have you come back and do this again to see how you've transformed it yet again, because each of these things is an iterative process as we go. And I think with the feedback you received today, it's only going to make your pitch even that much more better. So I would love to see you come back and be able to do this again for us.
Yeah, I will probably do that. So what would you suggest to do? Do it without slides or with slides? Because it made it much easier for me, what you suggested, Michael, to highlight more about the business side, the business model, and I also had some aspects of the revenue, projected revenue. So include some slides or without slides would be.
I prefer no slides for a reason, and that is
Yeah.
that you will always be able to be prepared to talk to anybody at any time without having something you need to rely on as a crutch. So if you're
Okay.
able to tell them that, hey, we're working on this here, we've got some studies coming up that where we need our funding, the funding that we're going to apply that to, that would allow us to do X, Y, and Z. Our customer base and how we see this would be looking at these kinds of funding models and business models as we go forward, where we project these kinds of revenue streams, given the fact that the patients or the customers of ours would have this kind of runway times of time on the platform to be able to hit their recovery goals or objectives. So use words, and it won't take long to do it, especially if you're able to generalize. Because I don't need to see the in depth. I just need to get hooked into it enough to say, oh, Henrietta, can you send me a prospectus? Can you send me something that has the 58 pages that you wrote that shows the in-depth, all the great studies and everything else? I want that then. But until you get me interested, I'm not going to ask you for it, and I don't expect to see all of it all at once because you'll bore me to death, right? So get me hooked. Tell me why this is important. Tell me why it's going to help a bunch of people. How I'm going to make money off this. How you're going to make money. How we're going to grow this together. And then I'll get hooked, and then I'll want to ask for all the rest of that information.
Okay, thank you. I will try. I think I will definitely come back another time, in not in 2 weeks, but maybe in a month or so.
Yeah. Great, great. I had one more comment. I know you're looking for seed money. I didn't write it down if you said how much. So part of your ask could
Yeah,
be, we're looking for $3,000, and we're also looking for grants and opportunities to continue our studies. We've already begun with 3 professors,
yeah,
but or 30 people, however you want to frame it. But you can ask for many things. You can ask for office space. It doesn't always have to be
yeah,
for dollars. You can ask for advisors,
yeah.
partners, etc., doctors to help with the study. So you could broaden that a little bit as well. Did you say a dollar
Okay.
amount and I missed it?
No, I did not, and I tell you why. Because last time I had it on the slide, and I think Nathan suggested not to give away the financials. So I decided not to. So, but I kind of thought intuitively that some people may want to see it, especially an investor. That
Well,
what am
or
I
just
asking?
how much are
Yeah,
you looking for? I mean, I guess that would be the other thing. So depending on, with
yeah,
an angel
yeah, yeah.
investor,
Just the amount.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
to get
Okay.
started and then to continue on to fund these other things. And also, I think follow-on treatment would be really interesting, or supportive treatment. Um,
Yeah.
I think you talked about that as something to work on after you get through this first layer of the business.
Yeah, I mean follow up treatment for the addiction. That's actually, there are so many businesses already doing that. So that's why we don't want to get into that, because that's not very far from being unique. So even
Okay.
there are many digital tools, digital platforms for that. So this is why we are focusing on the beginning, the choice, because that is unique. Nobody is really addressing that part. Follow-up is so it's part of the some of our business partners would be the or the businesses who do the follow-up. So that's how it would all come together. That's
Cool.
part of
Okay.
that.
Great. That's
I
worth
I
sharing.
have one last thing to mention here related to your performance today. Forgetting about
Yeah.
everything everybody has said, I just want to give you high compliments for doing a great job talking to me, because you were really focused on the camera every possible chance you could, short of what everybody has said about facial expressions and voice, but your eyes today were peeled into the camera, focused on the camera, and I really appreciated that. And I think your audience online everywhere will also appreciate that. And that's really the biggest mistake people are making in the online world in these on-screen presence situations, is they look at the people over here. And this
Yeah.
is how I'm talking to you right now, Henrietta. Are we making a connection? Obviously not. So once you train
Yeah.
yourself to do what you just did here today by focusing in on the eyes of your audience, which are right inside the camera, it's a little weird, yes, but you get used to it. And when you get used to it, your
Yeah.
audience will respond generally much better. Like if you were on TV, and not on TV, or you're watching TV and the talk show host is looking right down the throat of the camera and you think they're looking at you. It's no different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why doing it without slides is better for that purpose as well, because then I'm not looking at my slides. The slides are always distracting because that's, different focus, different part of the screen. So yeah.
Great.
Very cool. What a round of feedback again. I was actually worried after seeing last week's pitch whether we would have enough, but of course we always have enough to provide you to change and make your pitch even better. So yes, I would actually love to see you come back as well, Henrietta. We can take this offline. And my question to you is, are you happy with the feedback you received today?
I am more than happy. Thank you so much, everyone. So it worked so well so that I could do it 2 consecutive weeks and slightly different sets of coaches, but 2 people the same. And so I learned so much from this in so many ways. Like I even said last time, that not only have to improve the pitch, but all this feedback about even the business model, the strategy and suggestions where to look for funding. And so even the body language, that's something today I never thought about that myself. So people gave me all kinds of feedback, but that's brand new. So thank you for that.
Good. So what a great testimonial. And to anybody watching us here, of course, you can apply to pitch as well. Simply go to pitchzone.live, choose a date that fits your schedule, click on it, fill in your email, and we'll take it into the show over here. And with that, I want to thank not only you, Henrietta, for coming back and showing us how much different and more effective a pitch can be with just a few subtle improvements, a few subtle changes. But of course, also a big thanks to all of the coaches over here. Week in and week out, you are spending time with us. And Fancy and Fleek here also thought that today was a great show as well. I think we all agree. And with that, I wish all of you a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And we shall see each other again next week. Bye-bye.